Adat Yisrael presenta YHWH TV, Canal 26.7, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos.
Shalom, shalom. Once again, I am Rapha'Yah, and I am today bringing one of the very important Torah lessons, which speaks about the Mashiach. And one of the topics which we will be encountering today will be the creation of the Mashiach. As you can see, we are seeing the topic for today's very important though, because today basically we're going to be discussing a lot of topics today that are that regards to the Mashiach, and it's very important because today I need you to buckle your seatbelts. This topic is very controversial, yet is very clear about the existence of the Mashiach. I want you to see something, and before we start, and I don't want to take this. In the Council of Nicaea, it happens a lot of things. It was a lot of debate whether the Mashiach, the Israel, the divinity, in other words, his state of being, was a creator, was it not, and it's come out with a lot of things that it was knowledge at that particular time. But it was very fairly to know that it doesn't matter of the apostate church, what they call it, did a lot of things, yet they, in their regard, they did a lot of altering to what the scripture says. But next, we will see about a lot of things that the Torah and the prophets, and also the Brit Hadashah, the writings of the first century, it speaks about the Mashiach in regards about the prophets and the Tanakh says. So let's, before we start, I do want to acknowledge something. I want to acknowledge something very important, and I do want to say shalom to the new members. Before we start everything, I do want to say shalom to our members from the Torah calendar group. New members are Theresa Blake Zetz, Nuvka Jeshua Nebels, and Jesus Torres Mercado. Those are the new members from the Torah calendar group. And it's not being neglected, but next week, if the Creator willing, we will bring teaching about the Torah calendar and some things that to make it clear about the Torah calendar is very accurate to the scriptures and how the Creator had said it from the very beginning of creation. Now, going back to the teaching, today's teaching, of course, takes place, as we mentioned earlier, in the Council of Nicaea. And as you can see, the little clip that I put on, it was a lot of debate in that century, where 323 AD, after the Common Era, bishops of Nicaea, a majority vote approved that the Immaculate Conception, this is what they wrote, the Immaculate Conception and Virgin Birth of Jesus Christ to Mary, Jesus Christ, declared to be God, according to them, declared to be God, and the Son of, and also the Son of the Father and the Holy Ghost. So in other words, that it was the creation of a lot of things that the scriptures don't actually say. And one of them is the Trinity, the Mashiach being the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, according to them. And so we see a lot of things that were made up at that particular time. But we will see through the scriptures that these things are in the way are being portrayed today in 2017. The false Messiah is being told for centuries until now. We have this mentality that this false Messiah, false Jesus, is being, you can tell that is being a Greek mentality that is being passed on to generations and generations. Some other time we will bring this false idea of the Mashiach, but today we will bring the topic, which is the creation of the Mashiach. And I don't want to stop too much into this because it will be a different topic. But in the Council of Nicaea, before that, the Messiah was not considered as equal before the council. That was before the 323. By 325, the Messiah was made equal to the Creator as a vote from the council. Now, like once again, this was something that they actually voted on, and something that they actually said, well, let's make this happen and let's make it a vote instead of going to the scriptures, because the scriptures are very fair when it comes to telling us what it is and what is not. So going back, we can tell that we are going to start in this topic, and we just want to preempt all these things that happened prior to that. But let's see what the scripture says, and let's get into that, because it's going to be a nice ride about the scriptures and about what the Creator is telling us through the scriptures about the Mashiach. What is the Torah and the prophets said about the Mashiach and his purpose? YHWH, or Isaiah 46 verse 10, declaring the end from Bereshit, from the beginning. Why did I bring this up? Is because we have to understand this is very important. The Creator, every time he tells us something about the future, he always tells us from the very beginning, from Bereshit. So taking from that mentality, then we have to understand that if the Torah is the word of the Creator, then the Torah is going to tell us exactly what it is. But I just want to make it clear that the Torah is not just, mentality is not just, the Torah is not just the 5 books. The 5 books, the Torah, encodes the whole Tanakh, the whole Brit Hadashah. And it's sort of like I call it the holographic Torah, because it doesn't matter if we're trying to take it a little bit here, we're still going to find it somewhere else. The same thing as a holographic image. The hologram is basically a pure laser, and it brings up the image. But we have to understand that if we take a little bit of information from that image, from the hologram laser, we're still going to retain the image itself. The same thing with the Torah. It doesn't matter if for centuries they're trying to take anything from the Torah, but it still retains the truth, the emet, because we find it everywhere. So once again, let's start from the very beginning. Bereshit, in the beginning, Yahweh created Aleph Tau, and then the heavens and the earth. Now, we have to understand this concept on the very beginning of the creation. And it's not just us, it's also in the writings of our Jewish brothers, that the mentality, and it's right there in the scriptures, it's right there in the Torah. The Torah says that before the heavens, and it says very clear here, before the heavens, before the earth, Yahweh created first the Aleph Tau. Now, what is the Aleph Tau? You might say. Aleph Tau is basically the whole Torah, the whole alphabet. If you notice from the where it's circle, the Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Tau happens to be the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which compounds the whole alphabet and also the whole Torah. Now, thinking on that, we have to understand that before the Creator made the heavens and earth, he created first the Torah, before, the Aleph Tau. So we try to connect one thing, the dots here. We have to understand, where is this mentality, this Jewish and also Hebrew mentality comes in, because it's right there in the scriptures. Now, going back, let's start little by little. If you notice on top, it's in Bereshit Barach Yahweh Aleph Tau Hashemayim Haaretz. If you notice here, in the very beginning, Yahweh created what? It is not in the contemporary versions of the scriptures. It's basically it's in the Hebrew, but it's not translated into the English or Spanish or any other language. It is there, Aleph Tau. Aleph Tau, we know, is the Torah. Now, before the heavens, before the earth, Yahweh the Almighty had created all the creation. First, he created Aleph Tau. We know that Aleph Tau is the Torah. Now, let's start with a different angle. Before the Creator created Aleph Tau, we notice the first Aleph Tau here. There were, in between the Aleph Tau, there is a Shamayim, which is the heavens, and the earth. You see, notice here, between, there is two Aleph Taus here. The first one, and then we see the second Aleph Tau here. You notice that? Two Aleph Tau. Now, why did in the very beginning of creation, the Creator brings two Aleph Taus here? And is something encoded here that we have to investigate. Remember how many times the Creator have set up the Mashiach, the two events. The first event, when the Mashiach came in the first century, and the second event, which is the return of the Mashiach again, which we all are waiting for. Now, something encoded here that it really grasped my attention. And if you notice here, the first Aleph Tau here, when the Creator, when Yahweh created Aleph Tau, in between the Aleph Tau, the first event, the Mashiach came. But if you notice here, the heavens and you see the earth, the heavens and the earth. In between it, there is another Aleph Tau. We notice that between the heavens and earth, there is a bridge. That's what you see in the top, is Peretz. Peretz means bridge. The Creator has made a bridge between heaven and earth. Who's that bridge? Who's that connection? The Mashiach. He is the Aleph Tau. He is the bridge between the heavens and the earth. He is the one who's bringing us righteousness to us all, to the Am Yisrael, to us. And it's very important that we search for it, because it's right there in the Torah. Now, if you notice a little bit more, the Brit Chadashah, the 1 Corinthians 15:45 said, and so it has been written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, and the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. Do you notice that here? The first one, it was the mortal one, and the second is the very life-living. But we have to understand that this concept, how YHWH puts it, because it's right there all over the scriptures. But we have to dig into, and believe me, there is so many reference, so many evidence in the scriptures where it tells us about the Mashiach of Israel. We just have to search for it. Now, Mashiach is the first creation of Yahweh, and I want you to put very much attention to this, because today the mentality out there, and a lot of people get really offended by this. I don't know why, and I think it's because of the lack of knowledge and the ignorance about these things, because the scriptures is very clear when it talks about the Mashiach being the creation of the Father. And we will see with the very, very verses in the scriptures, in the Torah and the Nabi and the prophets, and even in the Brit Chadashah, the writings in the first century. But we have to understand this is very important. The mentality today is that, and I have a lot of debates with a lot of people, that they bring the concept of the Mashiach, Yeshua being equal to the Father and being equal in every kind of way. but we see that it contradicts what the scriptures, even what the Mashiach himself said with his own words about not being equal with the Father. But let's start with this. Let's start with Mashiach being the first creation of the Father. Second of Psalms of Tehillim 2 verse 7, I will declare concerning the hook. The hook means the decree, the statute of Yahweh. Yahweh said, he said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. You see, notice here, you notice here, it is right there in the scriptures. The Mashiach himself said to the Father said to the Son, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Why did he say that? And another question, why is the title of the Father and the Son his son? Why the title of Father and why is the title of Son? It's because we notice that the Son came out from the Father. It couldn't be Father and Father. It says it is the Son and he's the Father and his Son. You see, notice I here two titles, very different titles. And we have to understand another thing. The Creator said in verse 8, ask me and I will give you the nations of your inheritance, as your possessions, the ends of the earth. Here is another topic that we will see next, very soon, into the study, that the reason why the Creator have his son is because he inherit everything to his son. That means the creation itself, even us, is the inheritance to his son, the Mashiach. And this is a very old mentality. This is not something new. The all ancient rabbis knew about this. The contemporary, after the first century rabbis, they start when they saw the Crusades and about the Constantine and how a lot of Jewish brothers were killed for the cause for the Torah and so forth. The Jewish mentality about the Mashiach changed a lot. And we can see the prior writings of the rabbinical ancient rabbis about the Mashiach and the new writings after the first century, they changed so much because the new writings, they completely annihilates the mentality of the Mashiach being the son of the Creator. They completely block that. They actually forbid that. But if you go back to the early rabbinical writings, we can see a whole lot about the writings of the Mashiach in the state of being the Mashiach of Israel. Now, going back to another verse, the book of Acts 13:33, it has been written in Psalms. Do you see that? Another reference of Shaul, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Shaul is referring to the Tehillim of Psalms chapter 2. Let's see what the same chapter 2 verse 12 says. Kiss the son, lest he be angry. Who is he? The Father. Kiss the son, lest he, the Father, be angry. If you notice here how the Father always acknowledges his Son. Why? Because there is a purpose for the Son to be. Why was the reason why his creation? Why was it created? What was given to him? It is all over the scriptures. In matter of fact, the ancient rabbinical writings, if I can actually give you so many references, there is a state that it says that the whole Torah and the Nevi'im, the whole Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures were written about the Mashiach and his purpose. And there is no denial on that. Now, book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 5, for to which one of the cherubs ever said, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And again, I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. You see that? He is referring, book of Hebrews is referring to chapter 2, verse 7 of the book of Psalms. And again, when he brought the firstborn into the world, did you notice that? Again, verse 6 says, and he brought the firstborn into the world. Now, why is the title the Mashiach the firstborn? He has two levels of understanding. The first one, he is the firstborn of all creation. That means before the heavens were created, before the earth was created, before humanity was created, before the angels, the Malachim was created, before everything, the Mashiach happens to be the firstborn, the first creation. It is there, is all over the scriptures. Now let's read what Colossians chapter 1 verse 15. The firstborn of all creation. Do you see that here? The firstborn of all creation. Very clear here. Colossians 1:17. And he is before all things. And he is before all things. Why he is before all things? Once again, because it takes us back. He is the firstborn of all creation. Before everything was created, he is the first one that was created according to the scriptures. Now, Revelation 3:14, he is the head of the creation of Yahweh. Once again, the creator is revealing to Yochanan the Revelator. He said that he is the head of the creation of Yahweh Sevaot. Once again, we see so many reference. I mean, I found so many references in the scriptures that is so many to be told. But we brought the important ones here for us to take note of that. Now, Psalms of Tehillim 89 verse 26. He, who, the Son, shall call upon me, Yahweh says, saying, you are my Father, my Almighty. Do you see that here? It's all over the scriptures. The Son always referred to his Father, Father. And he called upon his Father, Abba, my Father. And it's all over the scriptures. It is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. It was already written in the scriptures what the Mashiach and his purpose to come in the first century, his first advent, to come, and the things that he will say according to the scriptures, according to the Nabi and the prophets about him and his Father. Matthew 3:17, and behold, a voice out of the heavens saying, this is my Son, my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Where is this coming from? Exactly what the Nabi, the prophets in Psalm 2:7, Genesis or Bereshit 22 and Isaiah 42 says. So this is, once again, this is not something new. This is something was written about the Mashiach, and the things about Yahweh we will say about his beloved Son. And this, by the way, happens in Transfiguration, also in the when he did the Tevilah, when he did the immersion, when he was already the Mashiach, when he was already anointed. Psalms 89:27, and I will make him my firstborn. You see that? And I will make him my firstborn, higher than the kings of the earth. Do you notice that here? More reference about the Mashiach. So many to be told. Yochanan 1:14, in the Word, we know that the Word is the Torah. Remember, and I want to take a few seconds here. Remember that prior to the first century, prior to the disciples, prior to that, the only thing available in the first century was the Torah. The Torah was the written word of the Creator, Yahweh Sevaot, what is called today the Hebrew Scriptures, the Tanakh, including the Torah. But Yochanan says, he is the Word. In the beginning, the Word, the Torah, became flesh, and he dwelt, he puts his sukkah, that means his tent, among us. Notice that here, the Torah himself, the Creator, made him flesh. How make him flesh? He became as a man. And that's why we cannot say that we have to separate those two things, because the Torah is the written word of the Creator. And we know that the Torah says in the very beginning, as we took off in the very beginning of Genesis or Bereshit, we know that in the very beginning Yahweh created Aleph Tau. Aleph Tau is the Torah. Now, Matthew 3:17, and behold, a voice out of the heaven saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Another, once again, reference. Yohanan 1:18, no one has seen the Father or Yahweh at any time. The only begotten Son, do you see that here? The only begotten Son who is in the bosom of the Father, in whom declare him. Do you notice how here? The only one who has seen the Father is the Son. Why? Because the Son came out from the Father. But one thing I noticed that here in the Hebrew, I was looking at the word bosom. The bosom happens to be here by the breast. When you carry the child, you always carry him by here in your chest. I have my grandson, by the way, and every time he wants to get on my arms, I have to pick him up and put him here. I have to put him here because he wants to be there. He always, crying at me to hold him here on my chest, hold him together here, so I won't let go. Same thing with the Father. He is coming from the Father, and he's the one who declaring him. Now, we are going to the next topic, which is the pre-existence of the Mashiach. And like I said, those are very important topics because nobody wants to talk about it. And nobody wants to talk about it because a lot of people are very unsure, and also a lot of traditionalism today, a lot of traditions of men, because once again, this is being passed on through generations and generations. In our mind, we think that's what it is, but it isn't. The scriptures never say about those things. And we believe in man today in the pulpit. We believe in man today. The mentality today is a lot of the Christian mentality, the Messianic mentality. The Messianics are basically, Christians, a little bit of copying a little bit of Judaism, but it's basically the same thing. If you notice, they follow the same thing, the same mentality. The scriptures never talked about these things. We have to understand that we have the Torah and the Nevi'im, and the prophets talks about the Mashiach. The Mashiach himself said it with his own words about all his purpose of his creation and everything that he has done in the entire world, in history. So let's start with the pre-existence in the next topic, the pre-existence of the Mashiach. In Exodus 23 verse 20, see, I am sending my malach, my messenger, my angel, before you. Be on guard before him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he is not going to pardon your transgression. My name is in him. You notice I hear? My name is in him. Here, the Creator says that he will send his malach, his angel. And being guard in him, and do not rebel to his voice. In other words, obey his voice. Would you see the pattern here? The same thing as Mashiach, the same thing. Once again, we see it all over the scriptures. We just need to look for where does it say it. But here, notice, and the one thing in blue, if you notice, my name is in him. Is very, very clear verse here, because the name of the Mashiach is YHWH. YHWH, Yah is short for Yahweh, and Yeshua means to save. But if you notice, the U is not O, it's not Yahushua. Yahushua happens to be Yahshua in the Exodus, right? Yahushua means Yahweh will save, Yahushua, because Yahshua or Yahushua was the one who went into, who brought our forefathers into Eretz Yisrael. He brought them into the promised land. And that's why his name was Yahweh will save, because he needed to save them. He needed to bring them to the promised land, to Eretz Yisrael. But in this case, in the case of our Mashiach, his name is with the U. The vowel is the U. And the reason for it is because if you notice that here, Yahweh will save, or Yahweh will save. Okay, Yahweh saves. In other words, it's present, it's not future. If you go in, I didn't bring the verse, but you can look it up in Matthew, in the Shem Tov in Hebrew, Matthew chapter 1, read it please. It says very clear, the Malach told Miriam, quote unquote, so-called Mary, he said, call him YHWH, because he will save, he saves, his people. Once again, he needed to save his people. Who is his people? Us. Now, Revelation chapter 1 verse 8, the living one, notice I here, the Mashiach, he gives his title, the living one, and became dead, and behold, I am living forever and ever. He himself, the Mashiach, is telling Yochanan the Revelator that he is the one living. And also another title, the one became dead. Why? Because he gave his life for all of us. And behold, I am living forever. He says that means that after his resurrection, he never died again. Because that's his purpose. His purpose is to live. That was the life that was the Creator gave it to him to live. But he gave his life for all of us, even though he didn't have to, but willingly he did. And there is something very courageous from the Mashiach himself. So here we see something very clear about the Mashiach in the pre-existence. Now, in Proverbs 28:22, Yahweh possessed me in the beginning. You see, notice that here, Yahweh possessed me in the beginning. How was it? Verse 23, I was set up from the which was before the earth. I was set up from the which was first from the earth. In other words, the Creator gave him a purpose. The Creator created the Mashiach. That's what the scripture says very clear. And there was a purpose for it. There was a purpose for it. And being that purpose, we know that it says in the very, very clear in the next verses that we will see next about the things that he did. So today, the mentality today is that, and it is a very weird mentality, and because the scriptures don't say that. We know that the creator of all things is Yahweh Sebaot. We know that. But today the mentality is that Yeshua make all things. And it's not clear, because go back and forth and so forth. But here we see very clear in chapter 8:28, the whole chapter, please read it. It says very clear who the Mashiach is, and also who created all things. And we will see it next. If you notice here in the next verses, 8:25, he said, and Yahweh made me from the very beginning for his ways, for his works. Do you notice that here? For his works. Remember, the Mashiach is the Torah. Mashiach is the word of Yahweh. Okay? Very clear here. The Mashiach is the word of Yahweh. I want you to go into the first chapters of Yeshayahu or Isaiah, Ezekiel or Ezekiel, chapter 1, Jeremiah, chapter 1 also, and all those major, prophets. Please look it up. And it says very clear, and the word of Yahweh came to me. It's one thing when you see other verses where it says, and Yahweh spoke to me. Well, another one it says, and the word of Yahweh came to me. Who's the word of Yahweh? The Mashiach. Do you notice that here? Two different things. Here we know that he says, Yahweh made me for in the very beginning of his works, for his ways, for his works. But look at the very next verse. When he, who is he? Yahweh, prepared the heavens, I was there. Do you notice that here how the Mashiach is describing all things? When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When the Father was prepared heavens, I was there. I was by his side. Look at the next verse, chapter 8, verse 30 in the same chapter. I was by him, who, the Father, suiting myself to him. I was that wherein he took delight, and daily I rejoice in his presence continually. For him, who, Yahweh, rejoiced with him, Yahweh, that completed the world. Then you notice that here? Here, we see something very clear. We see that the Father and the Son. We see who created all things, the Father, Yahweh. We see who's the Son by his side. But we know that it's very clear, the scripture says very clear about who made all things and who's the Father, who's the Son, what is the purpose of his Son, and so forth. The next verses, in the next topic, I'm sorry, here in this topic is also very important, because in this topic talks very clear about the Mashiach and his purpose, and also about the level of the Mashiach being equal or not being equal with the Father, and what the prophets talks about who is the Mashiach and his purpose here on earth. Nowhere in the Torah and the prophets mention about him, who, the Mashiach, being equal or the same as the Father. Today mentality, once again, it's not like I want to rub it in, but it's true. Today's mentality, anywhere you go, they always place the Mashiach being equal to the Father. And it's a wrong mentality, because if you compare what people claim to say about the Mashiach and what the scriptures themselves, even the Mashiach himself, said with his own words, it contradicts everything. It contradicts the Torah, it contradicts the Mashiach himself, because he said it with his own words. Now let's get into to this next topic. Yochanan 14:28. For my Father, you see, notice how with the Mashiach is quoting himself with his own words. For my Father is greater than I. Do you notice that here? My Father is greater than I. A lot of people claim to say that, well, he was in the state of being man. That's why he said that. No, we will see more verses about that. This is just the first one, but we will see like continuously so many verses that talks about Mashiach, talk about the prophets, talks about him being the servant, and so forth. And this is not something made up. It's something that is there in the scriptures to look upon and to ponder and to see what the Creator is trying to tell us, who is the real Mashiach in the scriptures. Yochanan 5:18. Because of this, therefore, the Yahudim lusted more to kill him. Not only did he break the Shabbat, but also call Yahweh his own Father, making him equal to the Most High. Who claimed this? The Mashiach didn't. I'm sure that the people didn't as well, but who made this claim? It was the Pharisees. The Pharisees, they plot to kill him because they thought by breaking the Shabbat and so forth, which by the way he didn't. He actually made a tzedakah, which is righteousness on Shabbat, healing a lot of ill people, a lot of sick people. He healed them, and he did a lot of tzedakah, a lot of good works on Shabbat. And he never broke Shabbat. He actually upholds Shabbat the way he's supposed to. But in this case, they wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him because he was breaking Shabbat according to them. According to them, he called himself the Father and make him equal to the Father, which he didn't. And we will see with the next verses that he never claimed none of those things, which was, by the way, a false accusation of false witness, because the Torah says if you bear false witness, you need to do this. And they were making false witness about him. So they were breaking all the Torah just by making false witness about the Mashiach. Look at the next verse. Yochanan 10 verse 38. But if I do, though do not believe me, believe the works that you do, but you know, and believe that the Father is within me and I am in him. Do you notice that here in red? The works. Let me ask you something. When the Mashiach did all these things, he did tzedakah, he healed people in Shabbat, he did feed a lot of people, he did a lot of miracles. Isn't it the same thing we're supposed to do, to feed the needed, to clothe the naked, And even the Mashiach said it very clear. He said, I was naked and you never clothed me. I was hungry, you never feed me. And the disciples asked him, but we never seen you like this. We never seen you sick. We never seen you in jail. We never seen you naked. We never seen you hunger. Why do you say these things? The Mashiach replied, if you did this to these little ones, you did this to me. You did this to the Father. In another parasha, we will bring more about this topic, but I just wanted to bring this to understand that the works that the Mashiach came to do in the first century was basically the same thing which is encoded in the whole Torah. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You love the Father, you do the same thing as with the neighbor. That's what the Mashiach came to do. And that's what, if you believe me, he says, if you believe that the Father is in me and I am with him. Why? Because he was doing the same thing as the Father does. 3:16 of Yohanan. Truly, truly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is an emissary greater than he one who sent them. Do you notice that here? What do you think he was talking about? He wasn't only talking about this, the disciples. He was talking about himself. He was talking about himself. He was talking about he being the servant. He's been talking about being the emissary, the one who's been a disciple, the one who's going to be sent. And we emissary means the one who's been sent. He was sent to us from where? From the Father. But if you notice the next verse, because I want you to connect this verse, Yohanan 13 verse 16, to what the prophet says. See my servant who uphold my chosen one. My being has delight in him. I have put my spirit, my YHWH, upon him. He bring forth the right ruling to the nations. Who do you think he's referring to? The Mashiach. Do you notice that here? My servant, my son, my Mashiach. YHWH, or Isaiah 42 verse 4. And his name shall the Goyim, shall the nations trust. What name? The name of the Mashiach. Why? Because in the name of Mashiach, as we saw earlier in Shemot or Exodus, the name of the Mashiach is encoded the name of the Yahweh. Yahweh saves. Yahweh saves. That's what's encoded in his name. And that's why a lot of people look upon his name. But nevertheless, the name of the Father, Yahweh Sabaoth, is always been to regard it as high, nevertheless, because the Mashiach said it himself. But not getting out of the subject here, let's go to the next thing. 1 Corinthians 11 verse 3. But I want you to know that the Mashiach, look at the here, the Mashiach is the head of every man, and the man is the head of every woman. And Yahweh, look at what it says, and Yahweh is the head of Mashiach. If you notice that here, the Yahweh is the head. Everything has its level. Everything has its level of everything. And a level of understanding, level of statue. And also, here in this case, Yahweh is the head of the Mashiach. If you go to Revelation chapter 1, in the very first verse of chapter 1, it says that there were revelation that Yohanan received from the Malach, the angel, that he was given from the Mashiach, that he received from the Father. Do you notice that here? One after another one. Who's the head? Yahweh Sabaoth. He's the one who upholds everything. He's the one who gave it to the Mashiach. The Mashiach gave it to the angel, to Malach, and also he gave it to Yohanan. Not only that, if you notice that here, when even in the second event, the second return, the return of Mashiach, when he comes back again, even on his call to return back again, no one knows. There's a scripture says that not even the Son knows. Only the Father. Do you notice that? I mean, he has the last word, in other words. Yahweh has the last word. Why? Because he's sitting on his throne. Yahweh is never moved from his throne. I'll tell you that. He's still in control, even though all these things are going on in the world, but he's still in control. Philippians chapter 2 verse 6, he did not regard to be equal with Yahweh. You see that? He did not regard to be equal with Yahweh. Very clear here. Very clear here. First of Corinthians 11:3. But I want you to know that Mashiach is the head of every man, and as we see it earlier, he's the head of every man, and the man is the head of every woman, and Yahweh is the head of the Mashiach. Now, going back to another topic, this topic is very important because we have to understand, it's very clear to understand, and I want you to understand that in the first century, everyone who expected the Mashiach, they expected him to come at any time. Even the first century, they expected him to come in the 4,000 millennium. But our Jewish brothers, because they were on the wrong wrong calendar, the Babylonian calendar, they reckoned by the Babylonian calendar, and so when the 4,000 year came, they were totally wrong. They said, well, the Mashiach never came. But when according to the Torah calendar, which is the Hebrew calendar on the Torah, the 4,000 millennium came, guess what? The Mashiach came, exactly. That's what the Mashiach himself quoted himself to them. You know how the bird flies when it's going to be raining and it's going to be any kind of weather, but you did not know my coming. We did not know my time. And regarding about his coming, his timing, according to the Torah calendar. Only a few knew about his coming, and some came from the east. Remember the wise men? They knew because they were instructed by Daniel that the Mashiach will come in a certain point of time, and that's what they needed to see the constellations about, because the constellation will tell when the Mashiach will come. It never says the moon; it says a constellation, something very detailed there that we will see in the Torah calendar in the future. But going back here, the Torah and the prophets mentioned the Mashiach before he came in the first century. There are several verses that speaks about him. Let's look it up. Matthew, or Shem Tov Rapha'Yah, in Hebrew 13:16. And blessed are your eyes because that they see, and your ears because they heard. For truly I say to you, the Mashiach says, that many prophets and righteous ones, long to see what you see, and you did not see, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear. Do you notice that here? The Mashiach said to those who were around there, especially the disciples, he says, you are blessed because you are looking at this. You are looking at these things that were prophesied by the prophets a long ago, a long time, hundreds of years before you are here, standing here. It was prophesied, and you are blessed because you're looking at these things that were prophesied about me. Now look at next. Hebrews 10 verse 7. Then I said, see, I come. In the roll of the book, on the scroll of the book, it has been written concerning me to do your desire. That's what the Mashiach said, O Almighty, to do your desire. Notice that here, the Son always lower himself as a servant to the Father. To do your desire. It's written about me to do your desire, to do your works. And he's all over the scriptures, as I mentioned earlier. First of Peter 1:10, concerning the deliverance the prophets have sought out and searched out, prophesying concerning the favor for you, searching to know what sort of time the Spirit which was in them, pointing out concerning Mashiach, when he was bearing witness beforehand the suffering of Mashiach and the esteem that will follow. Verse 12, to whom it was revealed that they were serving not themselves but you in these matters, which now have been announced to you through those who brought the good news of Besorah to you by the set apart, or Spirit, by the Ruach HaKodesh, sent from heaven, in which the Malachim or the angels long to see. Do you notice that here is something very important? Here, Kepha or Peter here is saying something very important, quoting about the prophets, quoting about the things that were written about the coming of the Mashiach, that they long, the prophets, the Sadiqin, the righteousness of Israel, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Adam, all these forefathers, they knew about the coming of the Mashiach. I believe the last previous parashat on the ending of the book or the Sefer of Bereshit, we noticed that in the last parashat of that book, we noticed, I think it was YHWH, and he lived, I think when Israel or Yaakov was about to die, he said he was about to tell the future. But we know that about the future, the coming Mashiach, about the latter days and so forth. But we know that they all knew of the coming of the Mashiach. They just didn't know when. They thought it was going to be in their time, but they never happened until the first century. And we notice that here. Let's look more verses, because I want you to see for yourself the verses that are there for us to understand. Leviticus 25 verse 10. Look at what it says here in the Torah. And you set the 50th year apart, and proclaim release through all the land and all its inhabitants. It is a jubilee for you. What is a jubilee? The 50 year, Jubel means 50. The 50th year is the release of all the lands, of everything about those who were oppressed, all those who were slave. I mean, it was a year of freedom, a year of jubilee. Now, why do I bring this from the Torah? Because it is concerning about the Mashiach. It's concerning about his first advent. Hillel or Luke chapter 4 verse 18. Look at what the Mashiach said with his own words concerning about the prophet. This Ruach of Yahweh, the Spirit of Yahweh is upon me, and because of this, he has anointed me, he has made me the Mashiach to declare the good news to the poor. And he sent me to heal the brokenhearted and to preach the release. Do you see that? The release of the land, the release of the captives, and the sight to the blind, and free those who are oppressed from forgiveness. Do you see that? It's all happened on the year Jubilee. And to preach the acceptable, do you see that? Year of Yahweh. You can look it up in 61 of reference of Yeshayahu or Isaiah. The Mashiach is quoting here the prophet. He's quoting about the prophet, about the things that were written about him, about his coming, about his purpose, about the things that he needed to be accomplished in the first century. But he never say something new. He was always speaking what was already written in the Torah, in the prophets, in the Tanakh. Hebrews 1:1. The Almighty, having of all spoken many portions, in many ways, to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by the Son, whom he has appointed heir of all. Then notice, now we're connecting everything. Now we're connecting every little thing. He appointed heir of all. Why? Because it's the first creation. Not only that, the prophets and our forefathers spoke about him. They spoke about many portions in many ways, but we never quite understood. And the reason for it is because the translations today make this confusion. When we get into the Hebrew, we have a better understanding about the Mashiach and his purpose. But if you notice this chapter 1 of Hebrews, it says very clear that Yahweh spoke to the prophets, the forefathers, in many ways, and people never catch those things. Only few. In these latter days, now he's spoken to us in the first advent. Luke or Hillel 10:24. For I say to you that many prophets and kings desire to see what you see, and did not see it, and heard what you heard, and did not heard. You see that? Did not hear any of these things, but you did. You have these blessings. You have these blessings to see me as the Mashiach, as a promise from the Father to come here. Remember, I want to emphasize this word, promise, the promise of the Mashiach, the promise of the coming one. He is the Mashiach. But a lot of people yearn to see the Mashiach, but they didn't get to see him. Only in the first century. Yohanan 8:56, John 8:56. Your father Abraham was glad that he should see my day, and he saw it, and they rejoiced. You see that? Because they were prophets. They knew what was coming in the future, but they did not get to see it, with his fleshly eyes. But because they were prophets, they saw these things coming, but they didn't get to see it in their fleshly eyes. But the next verse, Ephesians 3:5, which was not made to known the sons of men in other generations, and now it was revealed through the set apart apostles and the prophets and the Spirit, for the nations to be joint heirs, and his promise in the Mashiach through the good news. His promise in Mashiach, and you notice that here, I want to emphasize his promise in the Mashiach. His promise in the Mashiach. It was already prophesied that it was a promise of the coming Mashiach. Who was it? The one who came in the first century. But the reason why I want to emphasize this is because of the next verses. Hebrews 11:13. These all die by the way of faith, or emunah, or fidelity, not having received, you see that, the promises, but seeing them from far away. Notice out here, I want to emphasize this. Not having received the promises, but seeing them from far away. What promise was? The Mashiach. They were expecting the Mashiach in their time. The Mashiach did not come. They saw it from far away coming. Our forefathers saw this coming. Prophets, all prophets, they spoke about the Mashiach. They never happened in their time. When the time came, those who were around there, the Mashiach himself said, you are blessed because you've seen these things that were spoken through the prophets. They wished to see these things, but they didn't. You are blessed to see these things because you are listening and you are seeing these things. You are witnessing these things. 1 Corinthians 15:24, closing. Then, in the end, when he, who's he, the Mashiach, delivers the kingdom to YHWH, even the Father, when he makes to cease all rule and all authority and all power. I want to stop here. Remember what we talked about earlier, that in the very beginning, who was the one who appointed heir of all? The Mashiach. He's the one who's been giving everything from everything. He is the heir of all. So because he is the heir of all, look at the next verse, 27. For he, the Father, subject all things under his feet. Who's him? Yeshua. But when he, the Father, says that all things are being subject, it is plain that it accepts him, who? The Father. Everything is subject to him except for the Father, who has subject all things to him, who? The Mashiach, Yeshua. Now, where is this mentality coming from? From here, what we read earlier in Psalms 2, 7, and 8. But let's read what verse 8 says. Ask me, and I will give you the nations as your inheritance, and as your possessions the ends of the earth. Do you notice that here? The possessions, the end of the earth. Here it says very clear that the Mashiach has received authority and everything, because that's his purpose. But because his mission to be accomplished will come in the second advent when he returns back again, then we will see the next verse as it happens. Verse 28, 15:28 of 1 Corinthians, when all things are subject to him, then the Son himself also will be subject to the one who, the Father, who has subjected all things to him, that YHWH may be all things in all. Do you notice that here? I'm just going to pause for a minute so you can take a look at it. When all things are subject to him, then the Son himself also will be submitted to the one, or subject to the one who's subject to him to all things. Who's that person? The Father. So Yahweh will be Echad. Yahweh will be everything. Now, is this mentality that we, see in the first century old, that was written in the scriptures? It is. Remember that all the writings in the first century, in the Brit Hadashah today, what they call it, the New Testament, um, it was written in the scriptures. There's nothing new, something that it was made up by them. It was already in the scriptures. It was already on the Torah. It was already on the Nevi'im and the prophets. It was in the whole Hebrew scriptures. And look at what it says. I want you to see, compare these two verses. This verse that you're looking at is the next verse that we'll see. That Yahweh may be all things in all. Where does it say that? Zechariah, uh, chapter 14, verse 9. And Yahweh shall be king of all the earth. In that day, Yahweh shall be one. That means Echad. And his name, one. Echad. Do you notice that here? This is a prophecy that is yet to be fulfilled. This is a prophecy that it needs to be fulfilled. It needs to be fulfilled when the Mashiach comes, when things need to be accomplished, when the Mashiach comes, when the last thing that will be destroyed according to the scriptures will be death. In Revelation, very last chapters talks about that. That the last thing, that when the Mashiach fulfill his purpose, then everything was given to him, it will be given back to the one who gave it to him, which is the Father. Then he will be submitted to the Father. Then Yahweh, as it says here, Yahweh in that day should be the king of all earth. In that Yahweh will be one, Echad. And his name will be, you see that? Echad. Now, I know we come to the end, and it's an hour. I thought it was going to be less than that, but it took an hour to give this lesson. But it is a joy to bring these topics to clear our minds about the purpose of the Mashiach and his state of how his origin, where is it coming from, who, all these questions that comes in our minds. It is very important to understand what the Torah and the prophets, and also about the Mashiach, speaks about himself, about his purpose, and being on everything in life for us all. But in the next, I believe that even in our parashats, our Torah portions in Shabbat, also we speak about these things, and there's more to it. But because of time, I don't want to make it boresome, and I just want to make it for this end. And there will be more, and hopefully the Creator give us a strength and knowledge, and health, which is very important, to do Torah, to exercise Torah, not just to speak it. Once again, thank you very much for those who are join us on the broadcast. Thank you for those who joined the Torah calendar group. And for next week, there will be announcements, by the way. There will be a Torah lesson live conference next Thursday. It will be at 12 also live. And hopefully you can join us, the Torah calendar group. And those who are not part of the Torah calendar, you can join us as well, because this is something very important. The times that we are living, the times of the Creator, are based upon the Torah calendar, and about everything, about how we celebrate the festivals, are very important. It's a command, it's a decree that the Creator has given us to observe. If we don't know the timing, how are we going to know how we can serve Him? It doesn't make any sense. We need to know when to celebrate these things, and it's there in the Torah. We just need to look forward where to in the Torah, but it's there. It's been there the entire time. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. Thank you for everything. Shalom, and we'll see you again.
YHWH TV, Canal 26.